The alien city was silent under the red moons. Tall stone towers rose like broken teeth against the sky. In the center of the city stood the ritual ground, a wide circle of black stone older than memory. Tonight the circle was filled with shadows. As thousands of aliens gathered, no one spoke loudly. Only whispers moved like insects through the crowd. A girl stood at the heart of the circle, her arms bound with silver rope. Her eyes were wide, glowing with fear. She was young, too young for what was about to happen. Her name was Lyra, and she had been chosen to face the ritual of descent. No one had ever returned from it. The elders of the city watched her with cold faces. They wore masks of bone, symbols of their ancient order. To them, the girl was not a child, she was an offering. The crowd looked at her, but no one moved to help. No one dared to break tradition. Her family had stepped back. Forced to watch in silence, to resist was to be cast out. Or worse, the drums began to beat slow and heavy. Each sound felt like a stone falling into an endless pit. The girl's body shook with every beat. She tried to stay strong, but her voice broke. Her scream tore through the air. "Please, someone help me." The cry echoed across the towers. It was sharp, desperate, and filled with terror. The crowd lowered their eyes. They had heard this cry before. Year after year, every chosen one had begged, and every time the city ignored them. The ritual was law, and law was stronger than mercy. But this night, something different happened. Far from the circle, standing in the shadows of a ruined arch, was a human. He had come to this world as a visitor. A stranger among aliens, his name was Daniel. Unlike the others, he did not look away when he heard the girl's cry. He felt it cut through him. Her voice was not just fear, it was hope. A hope that someone might answer. Daniel stepped closer. The crowd shifted nervously as they saw him. No human had ever stood inside the ritual circle. They expected him to turn back, but he kept walking. His boots echoed against the black stone. The girl lifted her head, her eyes wide in shock. She whispered, "Almost not believing it, you heard me." The elders raised their staffs, their voices cold. "Human, this is not your place. Leave now or face the same fate as her." But Daniel did not stop. He looked at the girl, then at the crowd. "Why do you all stay silent?" He shouted, "She is just a child, and you would send her to die?" His words cut through the air like fire. The crowd shifted, but no one answered. Fear held them all in chains. Daniel stood beside the girl now. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You are not alone," he said softly. For a moment, her tears slowed. For a moment, she believed the drums stopped. A low rumble shook the stones beneath their feet. The ritual of descent had begun. The black stone cracked open at the far edge of the circle. From the darkness below came a deep, slow breath. The crowd stepped back, trembling. Even the elders looked uneasy, though they tried to hide it. The girl clutched Daniel's arm. Her whisper was shaking. "It is waking. The beast of the ritual, it is coming for me." Daniel stared into the crack, into the endless dark. His heart raced, but his jaw tightened. "If it comes for you," he said, "then it will face me too." The crowd gasped. Never before had anyone spoken such words. Never before had anyone stood against the ritual. But the human did not move. He stood firm as the rumble grew louder. The air filled with dust. The stones trembled. And two vast glowing eyes opened in the pit. Eyes older than the city. Eyes that had watched every sacrifice. They fixed on the girl first, then shifted to Daniel. The beast had awakened, and the ritual had begun. The ground shook under Daniel's feet. Dust rose from the crack in the black stone. The beast's glowing eyes burned like fire in the dark. The crowd gasped, their voices melting into frightened whispers. Yet no one stepped forward. No one spoke against the ritual. Daniel stood beside the alien girl, Lyra, his hand steady on her shoulder. She was trembling, her breath quick, her eyes fixed on the beast below. The elders raised their bone masks higher, their staffs glowing faintly. "Step away, human," one of them said, his voice like ice. "This is her fate, not yours. You interfere with sacred law." Daniel turned his head slowly, his eyes sweeping over the thousands of silent faces. "Sacred law?" he shouted, his voice carrying through the night air. "You call it law to watch a child die while you do nothing? You call it sacred to kill the innocent?" The crowd shifted uneasily, but still no one moved. Generations of fear kept their mouths closed. Every family had lost someone to the ritual, yet they dared not resist. Lyra whispered weakly, You should not stay. They will punish you too. But Daniel only shook his head. If punishment is the price of saving one life, then I accept it. His words shocked her, and for the first time she felt a spark of hope. A stranger, a human, had spoken for her when even her own people would not. The elders struck the ground with their staffs. The stone cracked louder, the pit widened. From the darkness below came a roar. Deep and full of hunger, the beast was rising. The crowd pulled back in terror, pressing into the outer walls. Yet Daniel did not move. One elder pointed at him, his voice sharp and cruel. You have broken the circle, outsider. You will share her fate. Daniel met the elder's masked gaze without fear. If fate means standing with her, then yes, I will share it. The elder's hand shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. No alien had ever dared to defy them this way. Lyra's knees weakened and she nearly fell. Daniel caught her, holding her steady. Stand tall, he told her. You are not alone anymore. Her tears burned her cheeks, but her voice steadied. Why are you doing this for me? Daniel looked at her, and his answer was simple. Because you cried and someone had to answer. The ground thundered as the beast climbed higher. A claw like black iron scraped the edge of the pit. Its size was monstrous, its breath hot and foul. Chains of glowing energy bound its neck and legs, holding it just enough to keep it trapped. The crowd screamed and stumbled back as the monster rose higher. Every year they had watched the same horror. Every year a chosen one was thrown into the pit, and every year they pretended it was destiny. But now there was a human standing in the circle, and the ritual no longer looked the same. The elders' voices thundered together. Complete the ritual. Cast the girl into the pit. They looked to the crowd, demanding obedience. But the people hesitated, watching Daniel. His courage was like a fire burning in the dark. It made them wonder, even if only for a breath. If the ritual was truly unbreakable, Daniel faced the beast, his jaw tight. He pulled a small blade from his belt, a weapon almost laughable against such a monster. Yet his grip did not shake. Whatever you are, he muttered. You won't take her without facing me first, the beast growled. Shaking the ground, its massive head swung toward Daniel. Ignoring the girl for the moment, its eyes glowed brighter, as if measuring the strange challenger. The chains rattled as it pulled, testing its prison. The crowd shrieked in terror, some fleeing, some frozen. The elders shouted louder. Desperate to regain control, Lyra clung to Daniel's arm, whispering, You can't fight it. No one can fight it. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. Maybe no one before, but tonight is different. He stepped forward. Putting himself between the girl and the beast, the alien people stared in disbelief. A single human was standing where none of them had ever dared. A single human was choosing defiance against 1,000 years of silence. The elders raised their staffs high. Light bursting from them like spears, they pointed at Daniel, their voices sharp with fury. Seize him! Kill him if he resists! Do not let this outsider destroy our way. Alien guards in dark armor rushed into the circle. Their blades drawn, the crowd gasped again, torn between fear and awe. Never before had soldiers been ordered to strike inside the ritual itself. Daniel braced himself, his blade ready. The beast let out a deafening roar that shook the very towers. The guards stopped in fear, unsure whether to face the human or the monster. Dust and sparks rained from the cracked stones. Lyra cried out, clutching Daniel's arm tighter. The ritual had become chaos. The elders had lost control. The beast had risen, the human stood firm, and the city held its breath. The circle of black stone shook as the beast climbed higher. Chains of glowing energy snapped one by one, their light fading like dying stars. Every break sent a wave of shock through the ground. The alien crowd screamed, pressing back against the stone walls. The elders shouted for control, but their voices were drowned by the roar of the monster. Daniel stood with his small blade, Lyra clutching his arm. The beast towered above them now, its skin dark as night. Its body was covered in strange markings, glowing faintly like fire under glass. Each symbol burned into its flesh as if carved long ago. Its eyes blazed red, but behind the fire there was something else. Not just hunger, but pain. The crowd trembled. For generations they had watched the beast from a distance, never this close. They believed it was pure death, nothing more. But Daniel saw the details in its markings. The chains, the scars, it was not just a monster. It was a prisoner, Lyra whispered, her voice broken. No one has ever stood this close and lived, no one. Daniel, please, we cannot fight it. Her fear was real, yet Daniel's eyes stayed locked on the creature. He spoke quietly, more to himself than to her. Everything about this feels wrong. If it wanted to kill all of you, why wait for rituals? Why chains? The beast roared, lifting one massive claw. The air cracked as the claw came down toward them. Daniel pushed Lyra aside, rolling across the stone. The claw slammed into the circle with a crash. Breaking stone like glass, dust and shards flew, cutting into Daniel's arms, but he stood again, blade ready. His courage made the crowd gasp. The elders shouted in fury, "He defies the ritual! End him now!" Guards rushed forward, but the beast's tail whipped across the circle. The soldiers were thrown like toys, their armor smashing against the walls. The people screamed louder. It was chaos, and yet in that chaos, Daniel felt the beast's gaze shift toward him. The red eyes locked on him, not on Lyra. The beast growled, low and deep, and for a moment, it did not strike. Daniel's breath was sharp. His body trembling, he raised his blade higher, though he knew it was nothing compared to the monster. But then he saw it, one of the glowing markings across the beast's chest. It matched the crest that hung from Lyra's neck. A small symbol of her family. Daniel's mind raced. The beast was connected to her. This was no random curse, there was history here. A truth the elders had hidden. Lyra, Daniel shouted, pointing to her crest. "Your family, this creature, they are linked." "Do you see it?" The girl's eyes widened. She clutched her pendant, staring at the glowing pattern on the beast's chest. "Yes, it's the exact same mark. But why?" The elders saw the recognition. Their voices turned sharp, full of fear. "Silence. Do not listen to the outsider. Complete the ritual now." They struck their staffs against the stone, trying to drown out Daniel's words. But the people had already seen it too. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Doubt, for the first time in centuries, began to grow. The beast roared again, louder, shaking the entire city, but this time, it did not attack immediately. It paced in the circle, pulling at the last chain on its neck, its eyes never leaving Daniel. It was as if the human's defiance had stirred something within it. Not just anger, but memory. Lyra clung to Daniel, her voice trembling. "If the beast is linked to my family, then why have they always chosen us for the sacrifice?" Daniel's voice was hard. Because maybe it was never about feeding the beast. Maybe it was about silencing the truth. The crowd gasped, whispers spreading faster. The elders shouted for silence, their power slipping. Daniel's words had broken something more dangerous than chains. Fear. For the first time, the people were beginning to question. The beast lunged suddenly. Forcing Daniel to act, he rolled aside, pulling Lyra with him. The creature's massive head slammed into the ground. Cracking the stone deeper, dust filled the air. Choking and blinding, Daniel coughed, gripping Lyra tightly. He knew they couldn't keep dodging forever. But he also knew there was more to this beast than death, Lyra. He shouted through the dust, "Speak to it! If it knows your crest, it might know your voice." She froze, terrified. But then, gathering every shred of courage, she raised her trembling voice. "Guardian, if you know me, if you know my family, please stop." The beast froze, its glowing eyes narrowing. The markings on its body flickered brighter. Like fire stirred by wind, the crowd went silent. Even the elders stopped shouting. For the first time in history, the beast had paused. Not for fear, not for chains, but for the voice of the chosen. Daniel stepped forward, his blade low, his voice steady. "It listens, Lyra, keep going." "Do not stop," her voice cracked. But she forced the words out. "We are not your enemies. We are bound somehow. I don't know why they lied, but I know you are not only death." The beast let out a rumbling growl, not of rage, but of pain. Its chains rattled as it pulled once more. The final shackle around its neck cracked, sparks flying. The glow of its markings spread across its body. The circle shook like thunder. The crowd screamed, the walls cracked, and with one final roar, the last chain broke. The last chain snapped with a sound like thunder. The beast rose free for the first time in centuries. Its body towered over the circle, markings glowing brighter than fire. Each step cracked the stone, shaking the towers around them. The alien crowd screamed and pushed against the walls. Desperate to escape, the elders raised their staffs, their voices sharp. "Control it! Bind it again. Do not let it choose its own path." But the glowing energy they once commanded did not return. The chains of the ritual were broken forever. Daniel stood between the beast and the girl. His blade looked small, almost useless against such a monster. Yet he did not step back, the beast's eyes fixed on him. Red flames in the dark, its breath came hot and heavy. Spreading dust across the broken stone, Lyra's voice shook as she whispered, "It listens to us, Daniel. It stopped when I spoke. Maybe it remembers." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we must make it here again," the beast roared, a sound that shattered windows across the city. Its claws tore deep into the stone. The ground opened wider, glowing fire rising from the pit below. Heat washed over them, the ritual ground turning into a furnace. Shadows twisted on the walls, moving like living things. The elders pointed at the beast, shouting at the soldiers, "Attack it! Destroy the human too." But fear had taken the guards. They stepped back, shields shaking in their hands. None of them wanted to face the beast now that it was free. Daniel moved forward, raising his voice. "Listen to her. She carries your mark. She is not your enemy." The beast's eyes flickered, but rage burned hotter. It swung its tail across the circle, smashing stone into dust. Daniel was thrown against the ground. Coughing blood, Lyra cried out, running to his side. But even as pain racked his body, Daniel pulled himself up again. His voice was fierce. "If you want me, then take me. But you will not take her." The beast froze. Its head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing. The markings on its chest glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the crest on Lyra's neck. The crowd fell into silence, watching in disbelief. Daniel wiped the blood from his mouth. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. "You were not born to kill, were you? You were made into this for a moment." The beast hesitated, but then fire surged from its mouth, a river of flame bursting across the circle. The stone floor glowed red, smoke rising into the night. The crowd screamed. Flames licking the outer walls, Lyra dragged Daniel back. Both of them barely escaping the fire, the elders shouted, their masks glowing with strange power. "You see, it is only destruction. It must be destroyed." Their words echoed, but their hands trembled. The truth was slipping from their grasp. The people began to whisper. If the beast was only destruction, then why had it paused for the girl's voice? Why had it not killed Daniel when it could? Daniel saw the doubt growing. He turned to the crowd, shouting through the smoke, "Do not believe them. They have lied for centuries. This creature is not your enemy. Your fear is their weapon." The people gasped, some nodding, some shaking their heads. But the seed of rebellion had been planted. The silence of generations was beginning to break. The beast roared again, stepping fully out of the pit. Fire glowed in its chest, spreading through the glowing markings. Its power seemed unstoppable, but Daniel noticed something else. The markings near its neck burned unevenly, as if they were not natural, but forced symbols of chains, not of birth. "Lyra," Daniel shouted, pointing. "Those marks, they are not part of it. They were put there to control it." Her eyes widened as she understood. The elders had not only trapped the beast, they had branded it, forced it into the ritual. It was never the beast's choice. It was their prison, their lie. The elders saw the realization spreading. Their voices turned desperate. "Do not listen. The outsider twists your minds. Kill them both before the beast destroys us all." But their command carried less weight now. The people hesitated, their faith broken. The beast let out another roar, but this time it sounded different. Less rage, more agony. It struck its claws against its chest as if trying to tear away the glowing marks. Fire burst from the wounds, spraying sparks into the air. The city itself trembled under the sound of its pain. Daniel's jaw tightened. He stepped closer again, even as the heat burned his skin. "Then let me help you," he said, his voice low but steady. The beast's eyes locked on him. For a long moment, the human and the monster stared at one another, and the crowd held its breath. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "If you can hear me, if you know who we are, then fight them, not us." The beast let out a growl that shook the walls. It turned its massive head slowly, facing the elders. The bone masks glowed brighter, fear hidden behind them. The people gasped, realizing the beast was no longer looking at the girl, no longer looking at the human, but at their rulers. The beast turned toward the elders, fire glowing through its markings. Its breath poured out smoke and heat, the night filled with sparks. The crowd gasped, many stepping back. But none dared to speak. For the first time in centuries, the beast was not looking at the chosen. It was not looking at the sacrifice. It was staring at the rulers of the city. The elders raised their staffs, their bone masks shining with unnatural light. "Hold it back," one shouted, though fear cracked his voice. "Bind it." "Control it," cried another. But the glowing chains no longer obeyed. Their power was broken, their lie exposed. Daniel stood at Lyra's side, his eyes fixed on the glowing marks across the beast's chest. "They chained it, they branded it, they turned it into this," he said. "Your people were never feeding a monster. They were feeding a prison." Lyra's breath caught, her hands trembling as she touched the crest around her neck. "My family crest. It is not a mark of death, it is a mark of bond." Her words spread through the crowd, whispered from voice to voice. If the girl's crest matched the beast's markings, then everything the elders had told them was a lie. The beast roared again, shaking the ground. But Daniel heard something new in the sound. Not hunger, not blind rage, but agony. It clawed at its chest, trying to rip away the glowing scars. The fire in its body flared brighter each time, as if the very marks were burning it alive. The elders struck their staffs hard against the stone. Their voices boomed unnaturally loud. "Do not believe the outsider. This ritual has kept you safe for generations. Without sacrifice, the beast will destroy us all." But doubt had already spread. The people's eyes no longer looked at the girl in fear. They looked at the elders, at their shaking hands, at their desperate words. Daniel raised his voice, stronger than theirs. "You see the truth with your own eyes. This creature is not your curse, it is their prisoner. They used it to keep you silent, to keep you afraid." The crowd stirred, torn between fear of the beast and fury at the elders. Some shouted, "Is it true?" Others whispered, "All these years, was it only control?" Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "My family was chosen again and again, not because we were cursed, but because we carried the crest. They silenced us so we would never remember." Her words struck like fire in dry grass. The crowd erupted in shouts, some angry, some terrified. The elders' masks glowed brighter as they raised their staffs higher. "Silence them! Seize the girl! Kill the outsider!" Soldiers pushed into the circle, their armor black against the firelight. But the beast's roar froze them in place. Its tail lashed, knocking weapons from their hands. The ground split wider as flames rose higher. The ritual circle was turning into a battlefield. Daniel pulled Lyra back, protecting her from the soldiers' advance. "Stay behind me," he said, his blade ready, but she shook her head. Her eyes fierce now. "No, Daniel, I must speak. I must tell them," before he could stop her. She lifted her voice again. "You are all slaves to fear. They chained the beast and they chained you too." The people grew louder, torn between terror of the beast and anger at their rulers. The elders grew desperate. "Do not listen. Do you want this beast to walk free? Do you want fire to burn your homes? Only the ritual keeps balance." But their words rang hollow now. The truth was in front of every eye. The ritual had not kept balance, it had kept obedience. Daniel shouted back at them, "Balance is not built on lies. You have fed fear, not peace." The beast roared again, fire bursting from its mouth. The flames shot into the sky. Setting the night ablaze, the towers glowed red, shadows of the elders stretching long across the stones. Then something strange happened. The beast lowered its head toward Lyra, its glowing eyes fixed on her crest. Its breath was hot, but it did not strike. Instead, it let out a low rumble like a voice trapped inside fire. Lyra gasped, clutching her pendant. It knows me," she whispered. "It is calling. It remembers us." The crowd fell silent. Watching in awe, the beast bowed its head lower. A gesture no one had ever seen. For centuries they thought it was only death. But now, before their eyes, it showed recognition, it showed bond. The elders panicked. "No, do not believe what you see. It is trickery. Kill them both before it is too late." They raised their staffs high, energy crackling from the bone. For the first time they unleashed forbidden power. Bolts of red light shot toward Daniel and Lyra. The ground exploded around them, flames roaring higher. The beast roared back in fury, its body glowing brighter than ever. The people screamed, caught between fear of their rulers and the rising truth. The night sky glowed red from fire. The ritual ground shook under the clash of powers. The elders stood high on the stone steps, staffs raised, unleashing bolts of crimson light. Their masks burned with unnatural glow, shadows stretching long and sharp. Each strike cracked the black stone. Shaking the city itself, Daniel held Lyra close, shielding her with his own body. Sparks and dust rained down. The air filled with smoke. The beast roared in fury, stepping between them and the blasts. Its massive body glowed like molten rock, absorbing the strikes meant to kill. The sound shook the towers, glass shattering from the heat. The crowd screamed and pushed back, crushed between walls and fear, but no one ran, no one left. Their eyes were locked on the scene before them. They were seeing truth with their own eyes. The elders were not protectors. They were executioners. Daniel rose to his feet, his small blade shaking but firm. He shouted through the smoke, "You see it now. They are not saving you. They are destroying you. How many of your children have they thrown into fire?" His words cut through the panic like a blade. The people froze, torn between silence and the rising storm in their hearts. Lyra's voice joined his, sharp and trembling. "My family was chosen again and again, not because we were cursed, but because we carried the crest. They feared the bond we shared with the beast. They feared the truth." The whispers spread fast, louder and louder. They lied. They lied to us all. Every sacrifice. It was never for safety. The silence of centuries began to crack. The elders struck the ground with their staffs. "Obey us, or you will all burn." But their voices no longer carried the same weight. The beast growled, flames rising from its chest. It turned its head toward the elders. Its eyes burning with rage, chains were gone, fear was gone, and the creature was no longer theirs to control. The soldiers hesitated, their blades trembling. Some stepped forward, others stepped back. One dropped his weapon completely, staring at the beast, bowing to Lyra. If the creature was truly only destruction, why would it kneel? Doubt spread among them like fire. The elders roared with fury. "Cowards! Strike them down. Do not let your weakness end our rule." But Daniel stepped forward, voice steady even against the storm. "You are finished, all of you. The people are watching. The truth is no longer hidden." The crowd stirred, voices rising. No more sacrifices. No more silence. The chant grew louder, a storm of defiance for the first time. The people were not whispering. They were shouting. The elders grew desperate, their power burning hotter. They pointed their staffs at the crowd. "Red light gathering. If you will not obey, then you will burn with them." The people gasped, pressed together, nowhere to run. But before the blast could strike, the beast roared and leapt. Its body slammed between the elders and the crowd. The fire struck its chest instead. Bursting sparks across the stone, the monster howled in pain. But it did not fall, it shielded them. Just as Daniel had shielded Lyra, the crowd stood frozen, eyes wide. A beast they thought was only death had saved them. The elders' lies shattered in that single moment. Daniel lifted his blade high, his voice cutting through fire and smoke. "They call it a monster, but it protects you. They call it death, but it shields your lives. Who then is your true enemy?" The crowd erupted in shouts. "The elders! Down with them!" The silence was broken, the revolt had begun. The soldiers looked at each other, torn. Some dropped their weapons and joined the people. Others lifted their blades against the elders' command. The ritual ground turned into chaos, cries of rebellion rising with the flames. Lyra stood tall beside Daniel, her pendant glowing. She raised her voice above the noise. "Do not fear the beast. Fear the ones who chained it. Fear the ones who chained you." The people roared in answer, their voices shaking the towers. Centuries of silence had ended in fire and shadows. The elders screamed in rage, their masks cracking from the strain of their power. One shouted, "We will burn this city before we lose it." They unleashed forbidden energy. Greater than before, the ground split wide, fire rushing out like rivers. The towers began to crumble, the city itself tearing apart. Daniel grabbed Lyra's arm. Pulling her back from falling stone, the beast roared in fury, its body glowing so bright it looked like living flame. It leapt again, striking against the elders' power with claws of fire. The clash shook the ground like thunder. The people screamed and scattered, not in fear of the beast anymore, but in fear of their ruler's wrath. The elders poured all their strength into one final strike. Their staffs burned red, their eyes wild behind cracked masks. The fire grew into a storm, ready to consume everything. Daniel held Lyra close, his voice fierce. "This is it. Either we end them, or they end us." The sky burned crimson, fire spilling from the elders' staffs like rivers of light. The ritual ground was breaking apart, black stone cracking under the weight of their power. Towers collapsed in the distance, dust and ash filling the air. The people screamed, pressed together. Torn between terror and hope, the beast roared, its body glowing brighter than the fire that rained down. Daniel stood at the center of the storm, his blade trembling in his hand. Beside him, Lyra clutched her glowing pendant, her eyes full of fear but also resolve. Behind them, the people looked on, no longer blind, no longer silent, Centuries of lies were ending, but only if they survived this night. The elders raised their staffs higher, their masks cracking under the force of their own fury. "You will kneel," they shouted, their voices like thunder. "You will bow to the law or you will all perish." Their power surged, flames twisting into a storm above the city. But even as the sky burned, their words no longer carried the same weight. Daniel lifted his voice, louder than the chaos. "We will not kneel. We will not bow to lies." His shout carried across the crowd, echoing against the walls. The people roared back, their voices joined in defiance. No more sacrifices. No more silence. The elders unleashed their power, bolts of crimson fire slamming into the ground. The circle exploded with dust and sparks. Stone shattered, the beast roared and leapt, shielding Daniel and Lyra. Its claws struck against the storm, fire meeting fire. The clash shook the city like an earthquake. Lyra gripped Daniel's arm, shouting over the roar, "It cannot hold forever. The markings are burning it alive." Daniel's eyes locked on the glowing scars across the beast's chest. "They're not just chains, they're wounds. If we free it from them, it will break the Elder's hold completely. But how could a human with a small blade cut through fire itself?" The thought burned in his mind, yet he refused to step back. The beast turned its head, its massive eye locking onto Daniel for a moment. Human and monster understood each other. It lowered itself slightly, exposing the glowing mark on its chest. The meaning was clear. It wanted Daniel to strike. Daniel's heart raced, his blade shaking. "I'm only one man," he whispered. But then he heard the crowd behind him shouting, "Stand! Stand with him." Their voices carried strength into his body, and Lyra's hand on his shoulder steadied his heart. "You are not alone, Daniel," she said, her voice firm. "You answered my cry, and now all of us answer yours." With a deep breath, Daniel ran forward. The beast held its ground, roaring in pain as the Elder's fire burned its body. Daniel leapt, his blade striking deep into the glowing scar across its chest. Light burst out like an explosion. Blinding and hot, the marking shattered, cracks of pure energy ripping through the chains that bound it. The beast howled, not in rage but in freedom. Its entire body glowed like a star breaking apart. The elders screamed, their power faltering, their staffs shaking. "No! This cannot be!" The storm above began to collapse, fire turning into sparks that rained down harmlessly. The people shouted in awe, some falling to their knees, not in fear but in wonder. The beast rose higher, flames burning away the last chains. It turned its gaze to the elders, its eyes no longer just red fire. Now they glowed with gold, alive with memory. The elders stumbled back, fear breaking through their masks. They unleashed one final desperate strike, but the beast's roar shattered it like glass. The energy scattered into the air, fading into nothing. The people surged forward, voices rising like thunder. No more elders. No more lies. The guards threw down their weapons, joining the crowd. The ritual ground became a sea of defiance, a storm of voices rising together. Daniel stood breathless, his blade still glowing faintly from the strike. Lyra clung to his arm, tears shining in her eyes. "You freed it," she whispered. "You freed all of us." Daniel looked up at the beast, its golden eyes fixed on them. For a long moment it bowed its massive head, a gesture of respect, of bond. The elders tried to flee, their robes torn, their voices weak, but the people surrounded them, no longer afraid. They pulled the bone masks from their faces, revealing only frightened, broken old men. The crowd roared in fury, but Daniel raised his voice. "Do not become what they were. Do not answer lies with blood." The people hesitated, then slowly lowered their hands. The elders' rule was over, not by more death, but by the end of silence. The beast lifted its head. Wings of flame spreading wide, it roared into the sky, not as a prisoner, but as a guardian once more. The fire above faded, the night returning to calm. The city stood in ruins, but its people stood free. Daniel lowered his blade at last, his body trembling with exhaustion. Lyra looked at him with quiet awe. "When I cried, no one moved, no one spoke. Not even my own people," she whispered. "But you did. You came for me. Why?" Daniel's eyes softened, his voice steady. "Because silence kills, and because one voice, even alone, can change everything." The people bowed their heads, not to tradition, not to fear, but to the courage of one human who had stood when no one else would. And as the beast's golden eyes watched from above, a new world began, built not on silence but on truth.